That's cool. I don't think there's a better way to learn about what you do than through experiences and stories like that. Super insightful. In fact, just even for me, what you have to go through to do something at this scale. And this is obviously not a Hollywood budget.
No,
And
it feels like a Hollywood movie though. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
which I mean, it's why Netflix, it was like one of the big sales last year, and and now 4 Oscar nominations.
Wow,
It's a real movie.
that's so cool. All right, welcome to A Filmmaker's Journey. Scott Hinckley, stoked to have you in studio.
Thanks for having me.
You excited to be here?
Nervous,
Because, yeah, like all of us, we're all behind the camera. We're hoping to learn a little bit about you and actually get you in front of the camera and hear your journey.
Yeah, hopefully I can help somebody.
Yeah, welcome to the studio. Hopefully, have you ever been on a podcast before?
Nope.
Awesome. This is a cool, probably first podcast. Obviously, the experience, we try to make it good. We got introduced by Ryan Roundy. Have you worked with him a lot?
Yep. I've known Ryan, 15 years-ish,
Yeah.
Something like that. He does special effects on almost all of my movies.
Cool.
Everything that I've done here, and I've even brought him out of state when I can, so.
Awesome. Well, since you've given us a little look, you hire Ryan Roundy. Let's just start with your name and your title, what you do in your career.
I'm Scott Hinckley. I'm a producer. I have producer, executive producer, line producer credits. Depends on the project.
Yeah, how long have you been a producer EP?
11 years.
Nice. Cool. And primarily all your work's on IMDb? Is that where we can find stuff?
Most of it, yeah.
Cool. Because I want to get into your journey, but I want to hear about what you're up to right now as a producer. Like, what is the day-to-day like for you? Do you have anything that you're working on currently that you can talk about or can't talk about that we can chat about, just to hear a little bit about where you're at currently?
There's always lots we can't talk about.
Yep. That's what I figured.
I'm in the middle of post on a movie we just shot in Baltimore. It'll be on Hulu this summer. It's a kids sports movie. I guess it's not a kids movie. It's a sports movie featuring kids.
Yeah.
Boxing movie. So look for that, I think, in June or July, called
Cool.
They Fight. I'm co-producer on that one. And then, I'm always reading scripts, things coming from my agents, trying to get something going. And nothing's real until I'm usually on an airplane.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
What's
that's my barometer for, when it goes from being talk to being real.
Yeah. What's like your process? Are you working through a company? Do you have your own company, or you hire? Like, how does that work with a movie?
I'm freelance.
Cool.
I have an agent
Cool.
at UTA, Nick Hawkins. Shout out. He's great, and I'd say half of my work comes from him. They get submissions, different companies needing producers of various capacities, and they take meetings kind of every week. They figure out coverage and they figure out who to submit. They submit clients, and then whoever has submitted, whether it's a studio or a producer or a director, if they like my resume, if they like the pitch that Nick gives them, then usually they send me the script. I read it, have a meeting, usually over Zoom because they're in LA and I'm in Utah.
Yeah.
Or New York or Budapest or Australia as of yesterday,
Yeah.
just wherever they are.
Yeah.
And, I kind of give them my perspective on how we'd execute the movie. And sometimes it's a fit, sometimes it's not. And, out of those, a handful of them turn to reality. Some I don't get hired on, some they want me, but they don't get money.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're kind of picking and choosing, but then also it's got to actually go through.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last few years have been really productive.
Cool.
I started this 20 years ago, just, as a PA, and just kind of clawed my way to the top.
Yeah.
Every time I feel like the next step is the top, I realize there's still so many more to go. But,
Yeah.
The projects are bigger. They're actually getting seen by people. It was hard working in the indie space for so long, and you kill yourself for something and then it never gets seen.
Yeah.
Or it maybe goes to a festival and kind of just disappears and no one sees your hard work. or the hard work doesn't come together for whatever reason, indies,
Yeah.
it's a crapshoot.
And I totally understand that when you like
so it's,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's nice now just making stuff that people see and,
Yeah.
Find independent of you, like the movie, Train Dreams that
Yeah.
we have. It's on Netflix right now. It's I think it's the first movie I've had where friends and family have seen it, not just because I've worked on it.
Yeah.
They've watched it because they, it popped up on their feed or whatever, and they sought it out. Some of them didn't even know I'd made it.
Yeah.
And that's fun to be like a thing that, I helped put out into the world.
Totally.
People are wanting to see, and it's not just like your grandma showing up to be like, oh, my grandson made this movie.
Yeah, that's cool. So you would say that you're primarily working on features?
Yeah. I'm trying to kind of venture into TV. It's a different world.
Yeah.
And not what I want to jump into head first. So I'm kind of learning. I'm getting a lot of like budgets and schedules from people that work in that world.
Yeah.
To kind of figure out, because the way you build the machine is different. And, it's like I wouldn't want to take it on not being really prepared.
Yeah. So for our listeners, we do get a lot of people that listen that just like to hear other people's experiences and their diverse, wherever they've been. There's so many aspects to film and so many areas to actually produce films. For someone that is interested in producing or doesn't quite understand what a producer does or an EP does, based on your experience, tell us like what you do on a feature at this current part in your career.
It's a little bit different on every project, just because depending on what producers I'm paired with and where we're shooting, it's kind of filling in the gaps. There's fundamentally, it's always being in charge of the budget, being in charge of the schedule, kind of top line, big picture items. But just depending on the needs of the project, depending on who I'm paired with, sometimes I'll have producers that are really skilled at one thing and not at others, and you figure each other out and you kind of fill the gaps, and it's teamwork, and it's making sure that everything's getting done and you play to each other's strengths and help each other out. Sometimes I'm a glorified accountant, depending on, it's like sometimes that's just what they need me to be.
Yeah. And
I prefer the ones where I come in early, read the script and kind of can either shape the narrative or shape at least the approach to how we execute the movie, where we're going to film, how long, who's going to be in it, how much is billed, how much, we shoot practically, the way we execute days. It's fun to just put those pieces together and kind of, even though my name is further down the credits, it's, it's a big part of like why movies end up being the way that they are.
Yeah.
Because I'm helping, even though I'm not the one always making the final decision, I'm helping the people that do make those decisions.
Yeah.
So
I have a question. I'm curious about this myself, and I'm sure it's different with every project again, but when a script comes to you, are you choosing a director for it, or do scripts come to you with a director?
And usually they come to me with a director.
Okay, cool.
There's been some stuff over the years where things that haven't gotten off the ground, where, a writer brings me a script and we try to get it going and have to find a director. But usually by the time it's coming to me, it's like the producers have hired a director, they have a script, and they come to me and they're trying to figure out where can they shoot it, where can they maximize value. Sometimes they have money locked, they're like, we have $10 million. Is it even enough to shoot this movie?
Yeah.
And that's part of what I'm helped to kind of figure out is like, do you have enough? Do you need to scale back the script? Maybe it's enough, but you have to look at it, through this lens.
Yeah.
Sometimes directors want to execute it a certain way, but you can't afford it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of helping them see alternative visions and, while still kind of respecting the needs of the creative.
Yeah. And I think it's a cool thing for you to point out, because I think a lot of people would like to be a director when they start out, right? That's kind of like the
was me in
area.
the beginning.
Yeah, it's kind of where, and then you start to realize what you like, what you don't like, what you're the best at. I think if you're ignorant, or at least you're starting, you think that you'll be hired as a director, or you can get to that point, but the majority of the time you're bringing work to studios or to producers, and so it's like you're kind of just solidifying the fact that if you want to be a director, you got to come with ideas and scripts probably the majority of the time until you get to that point.
It's kind of the most important part. You know, an actor is usually what brings the money for a project because of their value, but usually it's the director that brings the actor because, you know, they want to work with that director. A lot of the movies I've worked on, you know, we get huge name cast for a fraction of what they normally work for, and it's because they believe in the script and they trust the director.
Yeah.
Which I think is why it's so hard to kind of break into directing, because if you haven't done it, or if you've done tiny little things, you know, it's hard to get like an A-list talent to sign on and say that they trust you and they're going to work for less than they, you know, a tenth of what they normally would charge or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So it's just hard to assemble the package around kind of a no-name director.
Yeah.
So but then everyone has to start somewhere. So everyone breaks in a different way.
You could be like a Jared Hess and rise all sails and all boats, and just catch fire that way. But I think 99% of the time it's that hustle and get to that point where you can get the actors and they can trust you, and then you got to be able to get the whole team to trust you too. I'm excited because you're working in an industry a level I think a lot of people would like to get to when it comes to features. When I started out, I wanted to be in features, didn't go down that route eventually, but a lot of people want that, and so it's gonna be fun to hear your insight. So let's dial it back and talk about your journey. I like to just go all the way back to the beginning, no matter where it started for you as a kid, or when you first, and it sounds like you wanted to be a director, like when this world first spoke to you and that creativity started to come out.
I wanted to be a director before I knew what that meant.
Yeah.
It's just the name that I knew on, you know, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. It's like when I was 5-6 years old and loving movies, and it was always the first name that popped up. It was like directed by Steven Spielberg. It's like, I don't know what that guy does, but I like his movies, you know? So I assumed that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And even when I started in the industry, you know, I was a PA, and it took me years to kind of figure out like what everyone actually does.
Yeah.
And it took me years and years, because you kind of go in with these like preconceived notions, and then you actually watch the way that they behave on set and what they, you know, their responsibilities, and you kind of figure out like, I actually don't necessarily want that burden, you know, and it doesn't mesh with my strengths as much as I thought it probably would have as a kid. So I think it's important for people to kind of get the experience, and I think a lot of young people I'm seeing on set now really want to skip steps, and they're like, I'm going to be the DP.
Yeah. And
it's like, well, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, it's like go work in the camera department, but also work with, you know, work in grip and electric, learn how to light a set, work in art department, work in production, because you're either going to reinforce that idea and then understand how to work nice with everybody, or maybe you realize like you'd actually rather be an art director or production designer, or, you know. And I think the only way you can know what you're good at is just try it all. Yeah. And the people I know that are like the best crew on set are the ones that have kind of, you know, especially early in their careers, dabbled, and they figured out what everyone does, and they've done it all, because then, you know, a big part of crew is you have to be able to work with everyone. Yeah. And everything's so interconnected. Every decision you make impacts another department. You know, if you're in props and you decide on jewelry, it's going to affect hair and makeup, it's going to affect wardrobe, like everything needs to be in sync. And so I don't know, it's just good to understand how your decisions impact other people, and, you know, how to develop, I think, kind of like a workflow for how that process is.
How were you getting on set at a young age as a PA? You wanted to be a director, and then what was that? Let's connect those two.
I started off, I was the art department PA on a Paul Feig directed movie.
Okay.
20 years, I think is 20 years ago right now. Unaccompanied Minors, that was shot here. And I was kind of unsure. I mean, at that point, like I'd never been, I'd never worked in film. I was in college. Yeah. I had a scholarship, an academic scholarship to the U with the intention of studying medicine. And I got, I think, a year and a half into my generals and just kind of feeling aimless and my grades were slipping, and I was just like, I don't know if I really actually want to do this.
Yeah.
And so I took a semester off in the fall, and then I was in the middle of like putting my my spring semester together, and my best friend in high school, his older sister called, and she was like, "Hey, I just got offered a job to PA on this movie, but I signed up for spring classes. Do you want to do it?" And I was just like, there it is.
Yeah.
It's like, here's, and at the time I was like, my life's going to change forever. I mean, and I guess technically it did, but not in the way I thought in that moment.
It took way longer.
It took way longer. And it took 10 years from that show to get my first thing produced.
Wow.
But, I worked in the industry the entire time.
Yeah.
But I think I was on it for like 5 months, all of prep, all of production, and then until the art department was completely wrapped out. And then one of the, I think it was the accounting clerk, left early, and they were like, "Do you want to come and, wrap out with accounting?" So I stayed on for like another month, and I saw the books. I saw how the sausage was made, and I saw how much people were getting paid on this big, Warner Brothers studio film.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Here, because, I could see kind of like the end goal of, the people that hired me, the people I was working under, were at a level I wanted to get to.
Yeah. One of the things you talked about was like obviously getting on set, seeing how everything's operating, and being young and a PA on set. As you started to watch things, what was your style when it comes to being on set? Were you pretty hands-on? Were you kind of watching, like, because there is an etiquette, obviously, more in LA, but like, what were you learning as you were going about that and watching different departments?
It's a tough question. I wasn't a great set PA. Mm-hmm. I'm not one of those like busybody run around constantly just being like, "What do you want me to do?" and taking out trash. And so I was not a great set PA.
Okay.
And I only did it for a couple days.
Okay.
And on that movie, I was the art department PA. So
Gotcha.
I was, even just picking up lunches and stuff for the art department, but I would go in and I would sit with the graphic designer, and they would give me files, and they'd give me printing instructions, and I would take it to the sign shop, and, and then I would see these like large format prints, and then I would pick up the prints and take them to construction so that they could, put them up on the side of a building. And so I was able to watch kind of like the creative process unfold from, the set designer doing the drafts of, back then it was on vellum, mm-hmm. and I had to go to like a Reaper graphics company and do hand-drawn blueprints, and I would take a copy to the art director, they would stamp it, and then the one that was stamped I would take to construction, and then they would start building based off of it. And then a couple weeks later I'd go drop another set of blueprints off, and there was the set that I watched them draw. Wow. And so that was like, cool. I liked being involved in that side of it, and it was more kind of the workflow, the managerial, way less chaotic than on set.
Yeah.
I love being on set, but I like having my office nearby where mm-hmm. I kind of tuck into the corner, and I'm approving payroll and looking at the schedule for coming weeks and looking at cost reports, and I'm always close to set, and I'll come and sit with the director and make sure that they have what they need and make sure everything's going well, and I check in with the AD. But then I stop by Crafty on my way out.
Yeah, totally. I get it. And so when I didn't realize, so you only PA'd for a few days and then you got a call back.
On set PA, yes.
Gotcha. So then you got a call back to do something after that? Like, what was the next?
Well, no, because I started in the art department.
Yes.
PA. And then, I'm trying to think the second job was on another movie, people I met on that. I think doing video assist operator, and which I had no idea what I was doing.
Really? Just got thrown into it.
Well, they had fired like 3 people.
Yeah.
And I needed a job, and they were like, "Do you want to come do this? It's easy."
Yeah.
Not easy.
Yeah. Totally.
You know, back then we were shooting on 35, which is fun now. Like going, you know, I've gone back a couple times and shot on film, and it's fun to watch like young sound people. Like you start rolling, and they're just like, I'm like, what is that sound?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's film, bro.
Yeah.
That's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
But back then, you know, they didn't have all the transmitters, and you know, everything was very low tech.
Yeah.
And I carried around BNC cables that were getting the pins broken, and I'd have to stick like 3 of them together because the camera would be like out in a baseball field, and the dugout is where Video Village was, and I had to wrangle the cable, and the signal kept going in and out, you know, and there's a little trial by fire.
Yeah. So you're on set, you're seeing all this stuff, and it sounds like starting out as wanting to be a director, you probably saw quickly the importance and like how everyone's going to them, and there's a lot of pressure, and same with the DP, and it's like, did you see that and quickly realize like, it sounds like you were like, I want to be, you know, you got your office, you want to be like behind the scenes.
At that point, I was just kind of jumping into whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't necessarily enjoy doing video assist.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be different now. You know, now everything's digital, and
right.
You know, it's just receivers and you plug everything in.
Download. Yep.
But it was nice to work with different departments. You know, and I met a lot of people on that movie.
Yeah.
And you know, I did the best I could, not knowing anything about video assist. Like I didn't even know what the job was when I accepted it.
Yeah.
When I was 20.
Yeah.
And then the next movie after that, I was an AD.
Cool.
I was the second AD on set on this like little horror movie, and you know, it's like working on the schedule and learning SAG rules, and you know, learning about overtime, and just everything changed. And then on that movie, I met the props team. They really liked me, and they brought me into set dress with them. And then I kind of had this like side hustle career as a production designer and a set decorator, and that was kind of my primary focus for years. For almost 10 years.
Wow.
Working in the art department, designing sets. You know, when I was like 25, 26 years old, I don't think they knew that I was that young, but I was designing like reality TV shows.
Wow.
With like big construction budgets.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were shooting in Florida, and we were shooting in Thailand. And so, you know, it was like not at all the path that I expected, but I was working in film, and
yeah,
I don't recommend reality TV.
I'm sure.
I'm not built for it.
It's a lot of, you know, a lot of movement, little moving pieces.
Well, and so many people love it.
Yeah.
People that, you know, that do it, and they understand that world. I love structure.
Yeah.
I love a script. I love agonizing over like an eighth of a page, you know, one sentence. How do we shoot it? Where's the camera go?
Yeah.
How much of the world do we have to build? And that's, you know, it's just different from reality TV. But yeah, so I did reality for a few years, and then, you know, I was designing and art directing movies, commercials, stuff like that, trying to get movies off the ground. I'd moved to LA, and my roommate had written a script that we really liked, and we kept getting it really close to like getting investors. We got, you know, bigger name talent attached to it. We were supposed to shoot in Alaska, and it's just like things kept getting in the way. It kept falling apart. And then eventually I did a short film with these incredibly talented writer-directors. They'd never done anything.
Yeah.
And based off of that short film, they sold it to Warner Brothers, because they had a new like talent incubator called was it Stage 13? Yes. It has since closed, but kind of like before Quibi came, Stage 13 was doing like 10-minute, digital episodic stuff online.
Yeah.
And they picked up our short film. It was picture locked with no VFX, and we kind of retrofitted a feature script into 10-minute episodes, created mini story arcs. It wasn't, we kind of treated it like shooting a movie with like commercial act breaks.
Cool.
And then we shot that. It played at Sundance and also, premiered at South by. We did 2 more seasons of it. It went
Nice.
on Verizon when they had Go 90 for that like 9-month period.
Yeah.
And then it went away. And it's like I had enough under my belt that, started getting calls from people to start producing other content.
It's so cool. I'm genuinely curious about this with everyone. I love to learn about the thought process as you're kind of navigating your path. Obviously, you're in the medical field. It didn't speak to you as you got these opportunities on set. And even thinking back to when you wanted to be a director, did you see that as a career path? And as it was unfolding as a PA, were you like, this is it? Or were you entertaining other things? And because you bounced around and you were pretty much setting yourself up for where you are now, learning everything as you were going.
I guess we kind of skipped over. I just go off on a tangent.
No,
it's kind of my stream of consciousness.
I love to have people roll it, and then I bring it back and start picking it out. But yeah, tell me about that.
So, like I said, when I was 5, watching Jaws and Steven Spielberg movies, I was just in awe of like movie magic.
Right.
We got a camcorder, I want to say when I was 10, and I made stop motion videos. I had a series called Gore Galore.
Cool.
They were Legos and clay.
Nice.
And I would just, there was no editing software, so it was just like
in camera.
Well, yeah, it was in camera, record, pause, record, pause, record, pause. And sometimes it would be totally seamless, and sometimes I wouldn't hit it fast enough, and the Lego character would fall over, and then all of a sudden they'd be standing back up. And they were always really bloody. It was like samurais cutting each other's heads off. Nice. And I would have blood fly at the camera, but the way I would do it, I would create like a fountain, and then when I got to a certain point, I got like saran wrap and put blood on it and like smacked the lens. Nice. And just a 10-year-old weirdo. And
that's exactly how old my kid is, and he would do that. The pictures he draws are so violent.
Yeah.
Like, holy smokes, man.
Yeah, my kids now, like, everything's about swords and axes and
you're like, wow, that's kind of crazy, but at the same time it's like you're curious and just see where it takes you.
Yeah, I have to
keep them on the right path.
Yeah, exactly. I have to kind of be there to like rein them in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think just being creative and having fun drove me. And I really, when I was, I want to say 15 or 16, I wanted to go to film school.
Yeah.
My grandpa on my dad's side of the family, my whole dad's side of the family, they're like very white collar executives and lawyers and engineers and things like that. And I told him, I think I'm going to go to film school. And I remember vividly, he was like, he's like, do what you want, but just keep in mind, like, going to film school is like buying a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
And, and he wasn't trying to dissuade me or anything, but he's trying to give me, hard advice of, you might do this and dedicate your life to something that's not going to go anywhere. Because for most people, they don't.
Yeah.
And a lot of people break into the industry being like, I'm going to direct and produce. And then, they're just on crew and they have a good life and a good career and they might be happy, but it's like, it's not that dream that they necessarily had.
They get stuck.
But he, I think he was trying to talk some sense into me of, he's like, if that's what you're going to do, do it. But, take the family route of go to college, get a white collar job. And I was always really good at like math and science. And so I was interested in medicine. And in high school, I took all the like advanced physiology and medical terminology and, all the AP classes that I could, because I was trying to get ahead of it. And I enjoyed it, but I just, it's like once it started to become real, it just didn't feel correct.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoy that stuff on the side. I still do. Like growing up, I always watched, you know, Bill Nye and National Geographic because I love science and I love all that stuff. And I do like math with my son. Like we quiz each other, and you know, he's learning big numbers now. We just recently read Matilda.
Yeah.
And in it, you know, they're quizzing her numbers, and he's listening and memorizing like equations.
Yeah.
And so
cool.
I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, he's like, "Dad, what's 7 times 12?"
Nice.
I'm like, 84. And he's like, "That's right." He's like, "I remember from Matilda."
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
I just, you know, it's like that's an example of kind of why I love art. It's like
I was just about to say, yeah.
him listening to and absorbing the story. It's like it's teaching him math. It's teaching him, you know, constructive thinking. And I love what that can do for the world. We need art, and we, you know, it connects us all, and it's a way to express ourselves.
We need real art.
Yeah, real art. Not AI.
Yeah. We're in a wild
don't get me
time.
started.
I know.
But yeah, that's kind of, you know, that's where my headspace was. I wanted to do film. It didn't seem achievable living in Utah. You know, you always watch Nickelodeon as a kid, and it's like, if you want to be a contestant, you know, send your an audition tape to where, and it was always like a Toluca Lake, California, or Beverly Hills, California, and it seemed like it was just this different world, and you know, it just seemed unattainable.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I took that semester off of college to kind of like, you know, figure myself out. And my friend that I was working with at the time was like, "Just try it, man." He's like, "Write something, shoot something." He's like, "What's holding you back?" And I was like, "Screw it. I'll try something."
Yeah.
And I was trying to write and figure out like something to shoot. And then I got the job with Warner Brothers, and it just like all of a sudden everything fell in place.
So I don't know if I missed this. You were in Utah, and then you were on a Warner Brothers shoot.
That was the Unaccompanied Minors.
Okay.
That
cool.
was and it shot here.
And how? Oh, gotcha. That makes sense.
That was the first one.
Cool.
Yeah, and you know, that was a fun movie. Paul Feig directed it. You know, he did like Bridesmaids, and he had just come off of Arrested Development, which, you know, I'm an OG. I watched it all in real time because it was like high school and right after for me.
Yeah.
And I loved that show. And then it was so fun. It was him, and he brought a bunch of the cast, and so it's just like such a fun intro to film, being like, you know, it wasn't Jason Bateman, but it like, I'm trying to remember if Will Arnett was in it, but Jessica Walters was in it, and Kristen Wiig, and you know, just he had all these connections to like the funniest people of the time.
Yeah.
And they're just, you know, showing up on set, and it just made it such a special, weird experience. And
yeah, that would be wild.
Bad Santa had just come out.
Cool.
And they brought in the little kid from Bad Santa to be like one of the main kids in the show, and you know, he was just such a funny goofball, and I don't know, it was fun to just like be around him. And after having watched, you know, Bad Santa a million times, because it, you know, it came out I think when I was like 18 or 17 or something like that, and it was just like such a pivotal, like raunchy Christmas comedy, and all my friends loved it. And then 2 years later, I'm like working with the kid, and
so crazy,
you know, hanging out with his dad, who was just this like funny little guy. And
have you worked with Billy Bob?
I haven't worked with Billy Bob, but I worked with Robert Duvall, who always told me Billy Bob stories.
I'm sure
many of them are probably not suitable for this podcast.
Yeah, totally, man. And I love my gosh, it's the Taylor Sheridan show,
Landman.
I love him in that. So as you're kind of going and you're on set, you talked about being good at math and science. I can see maybe why you kind of fell into the producer idea, and then also you're doing a lot of numbers and crunching that. I'm sure that it swayed you. It
plays into my everyday.
Yeah.
Right now, you know, writing budgets for shows, trying to figure out how to physically execute. You know, one of the reasons I work well with Ryan Roundy is I understand like the physics and the science behind a lot of the stuff that he does.
Yeah.
I'll pitch him ideas of like how to execute things every once in a while, and he's like, oh yeah.
You can do that. They're so fun to listen to in their minds, like
Yeah.
just the way they think.
But like on Train Dreams, they built us this plane gimbal. We didn't have money to do the big hydraulic thing, and I called him and I was like, here's how much money we have, can you make something work? And we kind of talked about like different ways to pull it off, and he just thought super old school manual. Usually those gimbals now are run by like hydraulics, and they're pre-programmed with they have a joystick, and they have memory actuation, and they can like repeat a move over and over and over again. Kind of like motion control cameras. It's the same kind of operating system. But those, just to rent it for a day, cost more than I think we had to build the rig and the plane and hire the crew, and and we were shooting it like outside of Seattle. And he was like, I have a bunch of metal in my garage, I'm gonna whip something together. And we had like, I think maybe 8 days for him to like design and build and test it.
Wow.
And it's now that it's the final scene of the movie.
That's cool.
And it's like what they did with no money and no time is so incredible. But it's he and I, and then obviously there's a lot more to the team, the director and the DP, everyone kind of like pitching in on the elements that it needs to have, and the way it needs to balance, and the range of motion, and it needs to be a certain height off the ground so that the relationship to the sun, and it's like they're fun conversations, because it's like creativity and science and math, and it's kind of like using every part of your brain.
That's cool, because then you're able to collaborate with people, and I think that's the most important part of film, but also the more fun part is just collaborating, right? And working with people and their experiences and their ideas. And being a producer, you're like in with everyone.
When you have to, you're always inventing solutions.
Yeah.
So I learned so many things on every show, and often it's something I never need to know again, because it's so specific to the needs of one production, and not even just the story, but like the circumstances, where you're shooting, if there's a time restriction, it's like everything is custom designed to such a specific set of problems. It's like if you're doing a special effects scene in a building and you have a half day, you can't do your normal tricks of like coming in there for days in advance and special effects putting in glass and poppers and testing it, and it's like all of a sudden you're like designing some new workflow specific to that moment. And then it like is gone. It informs things that you do going forward. You take little pieces of it and carry that forward, but it's like that solution is singular. And so it's kind of fun and crazy. And
I like the way you phrase it. I think it's your creative, I can't remember what it is, but it's the better way to say you solve problems constantly. I want to ask, I'll dial it back a little bit, but I want to ask the question of that goes in line with that, about solving problems constantly and doing it creatively. When you approach a problem, like everything else, it's like varied by the problem, right? I'm sure the scope of it and the actual problem you're dealing with. Now that you've had so much experience and you've obviously dealt with a ton of problems, how do you typically approach like one of the more expensive problems that you might need to solve, like this one you're talking about? It's a very loaded question. How do you approach a problem that comes to your desk that can't be solved with budget that you don't have? And
we rarely have the budget to solve it.
That's what I mean by like, this question's crazy. You have the budget to do what you need to do, and let's say the problem comes to you and you need to fix it. This is a tough question because I need an actual specific. Let's phrase it this way. One of the problems that sticks out in your mind from a more recent film that you had to solve a problem from, I just want to understand the psychology of like how you approach a problem as a producer. I think a lot of people would benefit from it.
I'll give an example from Train Dreams.
Okay.
So early on in the movie, they're building a bridge, and it's it's a railway bridge, and it's kind of like the centerpiece of the early part of the movie. The catalyst for the story happens there. And we'd gone through so many practical locations that didn't make sense. There's the movie.
This is the trailer.
It'll at some point it will show the bridge.
Okay.
But we'd scouted 1 million bridges. It needed to be era correct, so it had to be wood.
Yeah.
It needed to be safe for us to film on. There's just a huge laundry list of items that it has to check off, and nothing was. And there's the bridge right there. Most movies
cool.
with a budget, they'll build
Wow.
a portion of it. And our original idea, we found an area that kind of like dropped over into a lake, and we were going to build the first, I don't know, maybe 40 feet of it.
Yeah.
And then all the interactions would happen there, and we would get a shot like this wide, and then it would be just a big VFX comp.
Yeah.
Locations was having a hard time. They were going all around Eastern Washington trying to find a valley like this that had the view, that had the trees, where we could cut down trees and create a track. There's so many things that go into this. And we found all these incredible parks and, state land and things like that had granite cliffs and things like that would have been amazing on camera, but because they're protected, we can't cut down trees, we can't build anything and disrupt the earth.
Yeah.
So it was such a hard challenge. And then we found this bridge, but it was in a town called Medellin Falls, which is almost in Canada. Like, it's so close to the border. We used like the Border Patrol's parking lot as our base camp.
Nice.
And the bridge is era correct, but then it came with its own sets of challenges. Like, it's over 100 years old, so it has a weathered look. So we had to do a little bit of VFX to clean it up and take down some of the age so that it looked more fresh at the time.
Yeah.
And we didn't want crew. Those 2 people up there are stunt people. They went out with safety rigs, and the only people that were allowed out there were them. And it's like if a camera, and there was maybe 10 inches between the railroad ties, and they laid down like plywood in between the rails so that there was a walking path. And that wasn't even the hardest part. The hardest part is it was in the middle of nowhere. There's no accommodations. We had 2 days of filming here, and I think we booked hotels in every direction because there was like a construction project that had cleared out all of the hotels in town.
Yeah.
And so we had to bring in drivers and vans, and like I think the 3 nearest towns, we cleared out all of their hotels, and then we rented out part of the RV park, and we found a company that had a whole bunch of our like travel trailers, and we paid them to deliver to us.
Wow.
And we stuck them in the RV park, and it was like myself, the first AD and the second AD in one trailer, a couple of producers in another, some props people, and they were people that were willing to share, 2 people to a trailer, people on bunk beds for a couple of nights. And it's just like, and there we had, I don't know, 40 or 50 extras coming from around the state. We had to find houses for them.
Yeah.
And it was so exposed to the elements. We couldn't get trailers very close, so we had to bring in vans to move people up and down, but it was a dirt road and it was kicking dust up, so we had to bring in a water truck to spray water over the road to weigh it down so that vehicles wouldn't kick dust all over the set. And we had to rent like the VFW and turn it into like a giant hair and makeup and costume station where everyone could check in. Just it's like that's how hard it is to make independent films. But look at that shot.
Right.
It's insane.
So beautiful.
And it's pure luck, it's preparation, it's necessity, it's all the things that go into it. And then those days, they were challenging because, the whole movie was shot natural light, and not just natural light, like very specific times of day. A lot of times natural light means we're bringing in a fly swatter and we're going to diffuse the harsh light. There was none of that. It was like we're shooting golden hour and late afternoon and early mornings and things like that. It's really hard to get a lot of work done, especially when it's complex work. You're shooting up on a bridge, you have trains, you have people doing stunts and special effects, and we would show up and rehearse and block it all out. And then there were times we would just kind of sit and wait for the light, and then it's like, okay, the light's, the DP would be like, we're good.
Yeah, hurry up
And then
and wait.
we'd run in and shoot for 2 hours or 2.5, 3 hours sometimes, and get like 5 pages of complex work done. And it just happened. And then while we're shooting up there, that little train that's on the tracks, we built.
No way. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, there was no way to get a real train up there.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't guarantee that bridge would hold it.
Right.
And so we just built that. And there's actually people like a stunt team and special effects guys pushing it, and we just comped out their feet.
That's amazing.
We'd tried doing it with ropes and pulleys and things like that, but because of the curved radius, it kept binding it at spots.
Yeah.
And we just, there was no time. Normally on a movie, it's like everyone would kind of go down for a minute, and you'd give special effects an hour to kind of rerun the lines and try to get it to go smoothly around the radius. But because of the nature of, we only have a few hours of good light.
Yeah.
They were like, take the ropes out, just push it. We'll paint out their feet.
Dang.
And so it's like I want to say Ryan Roundy's probably back there, or Devin, or some of his guys, and like our stunt coordinator, and they just pushed it.
That's wild. I think that was the perfect way to describe your career. Like,
yeah,
the
it's
amount of work.
You just figure it out, and it's so much work, man.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for crew and the things that they do, and it's like my job is tough, but my job is to make other people's jobs hopefully easier, or at least accomplishable.
Yeah.
My favorite part of filming up here, at the end of the day, we'd go and we were like sitting under tables and drinking beers, and everyone's just kind of like exhausted.
Yeah.
And the Northern Lights came and were like overhead.
Way.
And so we're just like, okay, this is
cool.
This is special.
Yeah, that's so special. And like, there's nothing I love more than a great producer, because I'm typically directing or shooting, and I'm not a planner. Like, even when I go on vacation, like, my wife plans it, and that's just who I am. And
I plan my vacations.
Yeah, I figured, and so like, I appreciate when I can show up, and like, your job literally makes people's lives so much better, and then the experiences are better, and if you're able to do that, you're managing a lot of the culture on set too, because people are, it's smooth sailing if it's been put together. Obviously, it's not always going to go to exactly how you planned it. It's movies. But I just want to ask a question about that scene. Is, you said 5 pages probably in one of the days, but the bigger question is, like, you were there for 2 days. How much of the movie was that for 2 days of pure chaos? It sounds like.
There's quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's that sequence where, the laborer is getting dragged up, and they're about to throw him off the bridge. There's the train going across the station.
Yeah.
They kind of invented a lot of moments of.
Yeah.
It's like a very Terrence Malick tone poem, introspective movie, and they took advantage of every second. They just invented moments. And while the 80s over getting someone changed for something, they would have Joel they're like, hey, look, here's a little thing of water, like, they'd kind of line the camera up so that the light's behind him, and they'd say, okay, splash your face, and he'd just kind of wipe his face and take his hat off and look. And then it's like some of those moments went nowhere, and some of them saved the edit, because they gave they're able to like add time and create pace and continuity and everything using those moments. And then the opening shot of the movie was there. and it's been used in a lot of like the marketing. It's like the camera pushing through a little tunnel, on train tracks. And we just found, we were just wandering around up there when we found the bridge, and the director and DP were like, this place is incredible.
Yeah.
And they wanted to mount the camera to the tracks and do all these shots. And our key grip kind of built a little thing, sort of a dolly base made up like from Home Depot parts. And we were able to put the camera on it and roll it up and down the tracks and mount the camera to it and get shots pushing in and pushing out and tracking shots, people walking up and down the railroad. And
cool.
Now it's the opening shot of the movie.
Wow. This is just taking advantage of that time when you're transitioning scenes, and that's pretty amazing.
I think we found that on the Scout initially, because we saw it and we were like, this place is so incredible.
Yeah.
And we just kind of wandered in every direction. And there's a moment we didn't have time to film, because it's like after he dies and his house is kind of falling apart, we found there was like an overgrown cabin, and had like a little stream kind of running through it. And they were like, we're going to go shoot that, and that's going to be his house.
Cool. And
we'd spent time trying to get it, and it's just like, that was one of the victims of, you don't have enough time to shoot everything you want on in Indy. We shot it in 29 days.
Wow.
Which is wild.
So fast.
I think this had the most scene numbers of any movie I'd ever worked on. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like 170 or like it's crazy. Because it's just, so much of the movie is just little thoughts and moments, and just be like an eighth of a page of he's walking with an axe, he's at the riverside, washing his hands, and each one of those had to be scheduled and timed out, and we had to move crew to it. And so much of the execution was trying to find like a location where one direction it's this scene, and we can just turn the camera around and get another scene. And the light had to, the light was always the most important thing. The light had to support that. But yeah, I mean, that's like how we pulled off what should have been like a $30 million movie for significantly less.
I was going to say, and then just hearing that many scenes in it and you going into that, do you tell them to pull back or to be realistic, or is it like, here's what we're going to do?
There were a lot of conversations about it.
Sure.
It's it's hard to be that person. It's like my job literally is to be the bad guy a lot of the time. And just trying to find a way to support everyone and get them, because you're never going to get all of it. Even on a big movie, it's like, you have to cut corners, you have to find different solutions. And the tighter the budget, the more often that is. And it's painful and it makes everyone stressed. But, it's just trying to find the best way to support the movie and get it, the best things on film that you can.
Yeah. Would you say that this movie or even that scene was one of the more difficult?
Oh, 100%.
Wow.
It's just everything that we did, just required a lot of infrastructure. Their cabin, we had to build a road out to it. And then as we scouted it in, I think, February, and we walked out there and, the ground was solid, and it was like this perfect place, perfect light. And it was right next to a body of water that, it's kind of like a little pond, but it looked like a lake or a river. And in the script, it's like their cabin is on the river. So everything about it was perfect, but then we had to build a road to it. And come spring, before they actually built it, we found out it's like a swamp. And they had to, kind of dig out the space underneath where the cabin was going to go and reinforce it and put in kind of like a French drain system of road base and cover over the top of that. And then greens had to come in, and everywhere people went, like they were sinking in mud, and so we had to engineer solutions around that. And then, so like that was a big problem. Weather, it's like,
especially in the north,
when you're shooting out in the middle of the woods, everything that you see, like, we're out there. There's very few locations in this movie where like you can turn and see something you're not supposed to. The church is one of them. That, it's a major set piece in the movie. And if you turn the camera around, you're looking at like a college,
Nice, yeah.
like in the middle of town. Oh,
There's that shot.
there's the tunnel.
How cool.
So it's, you know, it's fun.
It's got to be fulfilling when it's done.
Oh yeah, I mean this one in particular.
Yeah.
And
And
you know, it was nice I jumped from this into, you know, interior projects, you know, shooting in houses and
yeah, you're like, thank goodness.
yeah, having bathrooms and on set, and you know, being able to like take your jacket off when you come inside. And
Yeah. What? One last question about that scene. If you can answer, you can tell me if you can't. Those 2 days, how much did that cost? It seems like it was a lot.
I'm not sure off the top of my head. It was definitely, it was an investment.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's amazing. I don't think I have anything that I could pick this apart for a while. Is it out yet?
Yeah, it came out just before Thanksgiving.
Okay, cool. I'm
On
definitely
Netflix.
gonna go check it out. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Oh, on Netflix especially, gonna go check it out. It's
Yeah.
like one of the subscriptions I have.
Yeah, and then, you know, that big fire sequence was fun and
And
crazy.
that was Ryan, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we filmed it the movie had been shut down by the SAG and WGA strikes the year before. Like, we landed in Seattle to start scouting, and we were going to open offices the following Monday. And SAG and WGA had changed the rules about what films we're going to get. You know, they were going to give special permission to independent films to
Really?
go into production.
Yeah.
We were one of the victims of their new rules, where WGA affiliated projects were not. It ended up being a blessing for the film because we had extra prep time, but we spent that week scouting. We found this train that they're shooting on during that scout, and then
Well, what a shot.
yeah, that was fun.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we had real lumberjacks, and we, you know, they were able to cut down. I think we cut down like 5 or 6 trees for the movie. But during the scout that week, a forest fire started, which, you know, is like a major centerpiece of the film.
Yeah.
And we were in Spokane, all like hunkered down in our hotel rooms, and we'd bought box fans, and we'd taped like air filters to the box fans, and we're like taping up our windows and stuff because the air quality was like the worst in the world.
Wow.
Because we had 3 forest fires surrounding us. And then we came back in the spring, and one of the locations that had burned during our scout, we used for our forest fire location because it was all burnt out. You know, it's like that. That's part of it right there.
Yeah.
The trees were burnt. The ground was burnt. There's ashes everywhere. And we were able to come in certain areas, remove the new green because, you know, it comes back fast. Nature is productive.
Right.
So special effects and greens came in. They burned out and removed a lot of, like, you know, the little saplings and things that were popping up. And fire department came out. We bought like pallets of ash, and they blew it all over the place. And then for like the big forest fire sequence, we had a huge wall of lights in the background, filled everything with smoke, and had real ashes and embers flying in the air. And then we were able to light, I don't know, maybe a dozen of the trees back on fire with like fire gel. And
Wow.
so he was walking through, you know, when I can't even tell now watching like which ones actually were on fire and which ones were digital.
That's amazing.
But, you know, it's like we wouldn't have had access to that burnt out forest had we been there the first time. But yeah, so I think, you know, like these foreground ones are real, and probably that one tree's real, and everything behind it's fake. And
That's amazing. That's cool. I don't think there's a better way to learn about what you do than through experiences and stories like that. Super insightful. In fact, just even for me, what you have to go through to do something at this scale. And this is obviously not a Hollywood budget.
no,
And
it feels like a Hollywood movie though. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
which, I mean, it's why Netflix, you know, it was like one of the big sales last year, and, you know, and now 4 Oscar nominations. It's
Wow.
a real movie.
That's so cool. trying to think where to take it. I want to just go to your 20s, and you were for 10 years set designing.
Yeah.
And continuing on your journey, I guess after that, that's kind of where we got to, was you being a set designer and doing a lot of that for 10 years. Is this like a side hustle, it sounds like?
I mean, it was my career at that point, but it's like not, it felt like a stepping stone.
Yeah.
I often compare it to, you know, a lot of people move to LA to be an actor, to be a director, producer, whatever, and then they go get a job at like a coffee shop. And so it was like my coffee shop job.
Cool.
But it had the added benefit of I was on set, I was in production meetings, I was there for every decision and prep, because, you know, it's like, as a department head, I wasn't the department or the head of the department I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But I was involved with the AD. I was looking at why they decided to make schedules certain ways. It taught me how to read, you know, the call sheet and all the little details of it and what to look out for every day. And, you know, it taught me why you pick certain locations and how that department kind of influences the decisions of everyone else. And, you know, as a production designer and art director, it's like we'd pick a house that would be good for me, but then I would learn the hard way, like, it's terrible for lighting because they can't get gear in, they can't, you know, whatever the reason may be, or it's not great for camera because the rooms look great for me, but they're too small for a camera to fit in. You can't cover the space. And so it was kind of learning the mechanics of filmmaking.
Yeah.
But like by being in the room. And then I was going to dinner with the directors and, you know, just being involved in that whole world, writing around, doing the tech scout with producers, listening to them making phone calls, and just kind of absorbing the system.
Yeah.
So it was more beneficial to me than, you know, if I was like, I'm only going to be a producer and then worked as an assistant at an agency,
right,
or worked at a coffee shop, or was a waiter. You know, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're not going to learn the industry.
Right.
And I learned so much just being in the room with people, doing a job I enjoyed. You know, I enjoyed designing sets and being creative and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of mini producing, you know.
Yeah.
It's you do the same thing just at a smaller scale, and it's not every department. Right. And now it's like I do the same thing, just now I'm in charge of that person and camera and special effects and transpo.
Yeah.
And I get to kind of influence the decisions behind every department and help them, you know, hopefully do better at what they do, and, you know, see things that they don't see. And sometimes I have to be the bad guy and, you know, tell a designer, no, you can't do this thing, we can't afford it. Or, you know, transpo wants to put their trucks in a place because it's convenient for them, but it's terrible for the creative, or it's going to be in the shot, you know, and it requires them to have more drivers, more shuttles, you know. It's like every decision has a domino effect.
Totally.
Of where the gear's going to land means things are further away. People need more bodies to help, you know, and it's like I need to be prepared and able to kind of accommodate and address all of those things, and 3,000 of those a day.
Yeah, I imagine, and lots of phone calls. And
yeah, the phone calls are 24 hours.
That's why your phone's over there. I'd love to talk, like, because we're pretty far into this already, and I'd love to just let you talk about yourself for a second. About Ryan was telling me you've won awards. Like, what are some of your biggest accomplishments at this point in your career?
I mean, I think having produced, like, Train Dreams really is like a turning point for myself and a lot of people. Cool. Because I've made 100 movies. Yeah. You know, from PA to producer. I've lost track of how, you know, it's a lot at this point.
That's cool.
I spent my entire adult life on set, and I think, you know, I've made so many movies, and I keep changing, like, the goalpost. Like I did a road trip in 2013 in Scotland, and I like went to a bunch of like, distilleries, and came back with a bunch of bottles of scotch. And there's one that was like a single batch, and I have the bottle, and I was like 27. I was like, I'm gonna save this for my 30th birthday. And then my 30th birthday came, and it was like when we were gearing up to do Snatchers, the first thing I produced. And I was like, I'm just gonna wait, And then it was like, I'm gonna wait till I get Sundance, and then that movie got into Sundance, and then I got married, and then I had a kid, and I keep like changing the goalpost on myself. Train Dreams really feels like the big, Netflix bought it, huge awards, Oscar nominated for Best Picture. I'm not nominated. The people that hired me are, but
but you're involved.
Yeah, and it's and I was in the weeds with them, and helped plan and execute that movie. So it's fun. That's definitely like the big turning point movie of the career.
Yeah.
And it's it's opening doors, and there's a legitimacy that comes from making something that goes beyond like the indie crowd.
Yeah.
Because I made a lot of movies that I'm proud of that are cool little indies, and they get good reviews, and they play at TIFF or Telluride or whatever, and for Neon and bigger studios, but they just don't catch on in the same way. So it's fun to have that movie that like kind of became the zeitgeist, and is mainstream, and people are seeing, and people are appreciating it, and having kind of their own relationship with the story, because that's what drew me into it. I read the script, and it blew me away. Clint and Greg are such like delicate, thoughtful writers, and they adapted it beautifully. From Dennis Johnson wrote the novella, which I recommend everyone read. It's like 120 pages, and it's just one of the best books. So
cool. Well, congrats. That's really cool. And it sounds like it came out in around Thanksgiving, and that was 5 months from ago.
Yeah.
And
it was like it had a limited theatrical run, and I think it opened early November, and then it went to Netflix like the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Cool.
So it's like a big Thanksgiving family movie.
Yeah, that's I mean, just to say that you've produced something that's on Netflix is huge. What kind of doors are opening at this point? And like I said, you probably can't talk about a lot of things, but like what is that leading to when you say doors are opening?
I mean, meetings with bigger companies, people actually reaching out and asking to meet with me specifically because of the work that I've done is fun.
Cool.
The scale of projects, having studio backing, things like that.
Yeah.
So just more legitimacy, I guess.
Yeah, that's really fun. And you've already done so much that it's cool to hear that that this is a turning point, and it's like just a testament to how much work it takes to kind of break through, I guess, and just really get to a point where, you're working with, you're just on your way. And even though you've been on your way this whole time, it's like, I think it's super encouraging to just the work that it takes. And because so often I think this day and age, people want things to happen quicker. And
be patient.
Yeah, like you said, they want to skip corners or skip steps along the way. And some people might do that and get lucky, but the majority, it's a grind fest. And one last question before we get into the end. How did you manage that much? Like, how did you manage it? And I'm sure there's some discouragement along the way of like, this isn't going fast enough, and is this the right thing for me? A little bit of the trials maybe that you had to push through to get to today as you went through all these different areas of film.
I mean, it's still incredibly challenging now. Like, I've had to kind of recalibrate my priorities a little bit now that it's like I have a family.
Of course.
I have 2 young kids, and early on I was so willing to take any job, work for pennies, because I just wanted the experience. I wanted, there's this belief that you have to kind of like sacrifice yourself in this industry to make it, and it's like I don't buy into that anymore.
Cool.
And I think it's important to take care of your mental health, because this industry can tear you apart.
Totally.
And, and I've fallen victim to it, and it's really hard. I've worked on lots of projects that, they're not fun. You don't like the script, but you have a family at home, and, your priorities are different than when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice when everything lines up and it's like, you like the script, the money's, worth your time, able to spend time with family, the people you're working with, you enjoy their company because you're spending a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
And, you run the gauntlet with these people. It's nice to enjoy your company.
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
I've worked with people that are not fun to work with.
Yeah.
And it makes a challenging job kind of unbearable at times.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for people to kind of like, have a healthy relationship with filmmaking, and killing yourself that's not going to get you there.
Yeah.
It's more, it's about delivering content and delivering, and I hate the word content, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like deliver something that's valuable and good to the world is going to pay off 100 times more than, just grinding all the time.
Totally. It's amazing. Yeah, I love that. And I have a million questions I could ask you, but we don't have the time for it. I want to basically hear where you think, I guess, if the direction of your career was perfect and you're able to get to a certain point, like 5 to 10 years from now, where do you want to see your career going?
Similar to where it is now, but I would love to get to a point where I can be more selective of projects.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty lucky that I get to be relatively selective, but I would love to, have 10 things in front of me and be like, that one.
Yeah, cool.
It's like, that's a pretty rare ability for people to have.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll never be there, but yeah, I think that's kind of like the ultimate goal, is just being able to pick the ones that I'm the most passionate about, and the ones that I love the people, I love the script, hopefully shooting in fun places. It's nice to work at home. I live out of a suitcase most of the year.
Yeah.
Which is challenging for the family.
Totally.
But also, my son is 7. He's been to Hungary twice. He loves the food, and he's always asking me for, he wants me to make longosh, which is like this fry bread
Cool.
that they do over there.
Yeah.
Kind of like a scone for Utah listeners.
Yeah, totally.
And, they come visit me, and he gets to see the world. We took him to London for Easter because it was just a short little plane ride.
Awesome.
And, it's like, I traveled a lot as a kid, but it was always Southern Utah, Disneyland, Vegas.
Yeah.
Like the things that are accessible to people that live in Utah. And he's 7, and he's been to Europe multiple times, and he's seen tons of countries. He's been to DC and Baltimore, and, a lot of places that it's like, I'm not necessarily going to plan a trip to Baltimore just for funsies.
Yeah.
But he's been, and he's seen the history and the culture, and, eaten the food. And so it's like, I'm able to give my family, it's not the easiest life, because part of being, in charge of this much money and this many people, I get calls all day. I bring work home, whether it's I physically have to do something on my computer, or, mentally I'm processing something.
Yeah.
So there's, it's constant pressure, and that can be challenging for, relationships, but at the same time, they have a comfortable life, and, hopefully memories that they'll carry forever.
Yeah. And it's so much about harmony and not balance. It's like this is just communication. This is what I got to do. But like you, I found out kind of late in my career was like, I'd go places like Europe, and you're like, this is cool, but like I would way rather experience this with my family. It just becomes a different priority, and I started noticing that as well. And so sounds like it's the same for you. And
I FaceTime my wife a lot when I'm gone.
Yeah.
And she's like, the third time of the day, she's like, do you have something to say? I'm like, I want go get the boys. I want to show them something.
So cool.
And I'm like, just point the camera at this.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
you're jaded.
Yeah.
You've
But
seen a lot.
it's that it's fun, but it'd be more fun with them.
Yeah. But being able to bring them on set is super cool, and giving them experiences that they'll treasure when they're older. Right now, they're kind of like cool, and
Yeah.
they'll be so grateful for it later.
My older son's 7, so now we're like, we're watching all the Jurassic Park movies and Indiana
Cool.
Jones movies, and a lot of the things that I kind of grew up with, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And we watched Gravity last night, and then I showed
Awesome.
him all the VFX reels, and he's such a clever kid, but he was like, there's 2 people left, because it was like down to just Sandra Bullock, and I was like what? And I knew he was trying to like make a joke, and he was like, the camera person.
Ah,
I was
that's
like-
hilarious. That's really fun.
But he's like, now he's thinking about that side of
watching it
things,
with a
because
different point of view.
we watch VFX reels. He's been on set, so he's kind of starting to piece together like how it works, and he's realizing like actors will span multiple movies. We just watched the Mummy movies, and when we're watching the first one, he's like, "That's George of the Jungle." It's
Yeah.
like, it is.
That's fun.
And he was kind of like, "Wait, why is George of the Jungle in this? Is that the same person?" It's
Yeah.
like same actor, different character, and he was, just like watching the
What?
gears in his brain
Yeah.
be like, "Wait, that's a person, and
Yeah.
they have a job, and they're in multiple movies, not just one." It's like, yeah,
Yeah. That'll blow your
it's
mind.
like that's my whole world.
Yeah. That's
And
super fun.
it's fun to share that with him, and he's that generation where screen addictions and short attention spans, and so I'm hoping to instill a love of like long form narrative in him.
Yeah.
We'll see if I'm successful.
Yeah. It's crazy that the next generation coming up right now. It's wild with film. Just who knows? Because my kid's obsessed with creating AI videos. I let him jump on Sora or VO, and he loves it. And he has a very creative mind, and he'll just start typing he's like, I just dreamed about this and I want to see it. And he just creates these little films. So it's like, he's going to have a totally different mindset when it comes to actually, because he wants to get into the same career, but like, yeah, it's just going to be different. So
We should tell him, get a bunch of toys,
yeah.
and you can create this yourself.
Yep, he does. He actually loves creating stop motions. So I'll set up my phone, and he'll push the button, take a picture, draw on the dry eraser board. Yeah, so it's fun. The creativity's there. And I remember when he first asked me, he's like, what is AI? And I'm like, oh man.
Loaded question.
Yeah, it's this and that. And I explained it to him. He's like, that doesn't make sense. Can we do AI? And I'm like, we could do an AI video. And that's when he loved it. But if you were to end this with some advice to someone that wants to follow in your path and be a producer, what would you tell them?
I mean, it's tough because everyone has such a different like path into this,
Totally.
and my path is not something that you can replicate.
Totally.
So I think it's like, learn as much as you possibly can, surround yourself with good people, surround yourself with like-minded people, because my big break in producing came from being with other people that they sold the project and I went with them, and because we were a team, and it could have been them first or it could have been me first bringing them, and it's kind of like, play your odds, surround yourself with talented people, learn, keep creating. A lot of people are like, I really want to make my first feature just so that I have something done.
Mm-hmm.
And advice I'll give people on that is, don't make something just to make something.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of people, they're like, oh, I have my dad's house is pretty cool, so I'm going to write a movie that takes place there. But if it doesn't look good and it's boring and the actors are not good, and it's like, just having a feature under your belt it's not going to open any doors.
Right.
Unless you're Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch, one of these things that like blows into the zeitgeist. It's almost worse to have something that feels amateurish under your belt that's it's like, you're not going to show that to an actor. You're not going to send it to like Bryan Cranston and be like, please be in my movie, Brian.
Yeah, totally.
And he'll be like,
Yeah.
he'd
How
rather
much money
you
got?
he'd rather you not have made a bad movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think people need to be careful about the value of those things, and protect yourself from that by working with talented people that make you better, and don't fixate on things like I need to make my first feature, fixate on I need to make a good feature. I need
Yeah.
to make good product. You know, whether that's if you want to be a commercial director, you want to be a TV director, features. You know, it's like as you're exploring that path, it's like you have to make professional, high quality stuff for people to notice.
Yeah.
Because if people don't notice, it's wasting your time. You'll learn. You know, it's like those are all learning experiences, but they don't open the doors that some people think.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get, you know, to be that next like Blair Witch, that thing that you made with your friends in the woods, and all of a sudden like millions of dollars and doors opening, and you know, that's like a 1 in a million chance. It's better to wait until you like wait for the time to be right and the right project, and don't like rush into something just because you can.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do that because equipment's so accessible now. And
And there's just such like a desperation.
yeah.
That's our industry creates desperation in people because it's work and it's our livelihood, but it's like tied to our emotions and our creativity and our desires, which I think is why it's so challenging and hard on people. Is, you know, it's like if you want to be a lawyer, you go to school, and then if you do well, you become a lawyer.
Yeah.
In ours, it's like you can be so smart and such a good writer and a director, and it's like opportunity keeps blowing past you, and you know, you just have to keep trying, keep making things, keep making shorts, keep experimenting, and don't fixate on any one thing. It's like you just have to learn and get better. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love that advice. I think it's great. And I think a lot of people will learn a ton from what you've talked about. I've learned a ton. It's been fun. Thank you for being on, Scott. I appreciate you coming to the studio, taking the time. Thanks to our guests for watching. And this is A Filmmaker's Journey. This is your guest, Scott Hinckley. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Land it there.